Hello students, this is Ritik Sir, your biology SME. In today's video or today's lecture, I'll be discussing about the animal kingdom very briefly. I'll be just concentrating on the major important points on animal kingdom. Yeah. So, yeah, moving to the topic of animal kingdom. See, basically, every year from this animal kingdom, 4 to 3 questions have been asked. That means 20 to 16 marks will be from this animal kingdom. Right. So we cannot ignore the animal kingdom concept. So make sure that you prepare very well. You try to attempt the more number of questions also in the coming days. So yeah, moving to the topic. Very first thing is we know that there are billions of species, millions of species have been present and animals, and there are some animals which are still yet to be described right now. So in basis of classification, the classification basis were actually made on what kind of arrangement based on their cell body, then their symmetry, nature of column, pattern of the digestive system, circulatory system, as well as reproduction system. Animals have been classified. So there is also we call as level of organization. So level of organization may you will be concentrating on cellular level of organization, tissue grade of organization, organ level of organization, organ system level of organization, right? So these are the basic four level of organizations that you are going to see. First thing is in the cellular level of organization. Okay, so if I say an example of in cellular level of organization, if you take an example of sponges, okay, so what you will see in the sponges are the cells here, they are arranged very loosely, okay. The cells are arranged very loosely and each and individual cells, they undergo this, they perform its own function. So you can actually call the cellular level of organization can be seen where in the sponges and all. So we have next, that is some division of labor activities occur among the cells. So whereas in the Coleanterata, if you concentrate on the Coleanterata, what happens here is, have you seen here? So cells to cells, they combine to form tissues. Okay, they combine to form the cells forms a complex called more complex. It is called tissue. So the cell performing the same functions, but they are arranged into tissues here. Hence, it is called as tissue level of organization. Okay, they are called as tissue level of organization. If you go in the higher animals, okay, say you have platyhelminthes. So here you will see actually tissues they combine. Okay, they make a complex forming organs. That means organs they have a particular organs here, and that is going to function all the body processes. So these can be called as organ level of organize. They exhibit organ level. Okay, so this is one thing. So here what happens, the tissues, right? Whatever the tissues that you were talking about, they group together to form specific organ, and those organs are going to perform particular function or specific function here. And if you go to higher animals, like even in annelida, arthropoda, molluscas, echinodermata, as well as chordata, other organs have associated with some form of functional system. Okay, so then these functional system, each system co they are being connected with each other and perform specific physiological function. So these pattern is actually called as organ system level of organization. So after organ system of organization, what happens? You will again see a very complete development. Like you will see a digestive system, that is complex thing. Like you will see the intestine here, digestive system, then there is a proper circulatory system, neuron control, there is again a separate organs here, then there is lungs also. So these are kidney, which acts as a filtration, right? So they all they perform an individual function, but they together coordinate. Okay, so they what they do is they together coordinate. Hence, we call it as organ system level of organization. Here we have two things. One is incomplete and complete. See, if for example, in platyhelminthes, as I have given an example previously, in platyhelminthes, what you will see is there will be a single opening in the outside of the mouth. And that is outside of the mouth, there will be a single opening. And there it serves as both for food, mouth as well as anus. Okay. Hence, it is actually incomplete, organ system level of organization. Whereas if an organism is having mouth in one part and anus where the waste has been excreted, it is actually called as complete system. Okay. So that means a person or an organism will be having a complete digestive system. So if I'm talking about complete digestive system, one should have both mouth as well as anus. It should start with mouth and ends with anus. So in some organisms, it is not that, but still we consider them as organs because there are specific organs which are performing its function. So when coming to the circulatory system, okay, so we have again in organisms, we have two types. So one is open type and closed type. In open type of circulatory system, what happens? The blood is pumped out from the heart, okay, from the heart, and the cells and the tissues are directly being bathed in it. That means the blood is pumped out from the heart. Whatever the cells, tissues, everything, right? They get the blood directly. There are no specific, channels or like there is no specific system from where they're going to travel. Yeah, so both cells, tissues, whatever they are, they will be directly bathed from the blood which is being, pumped out directly from the heart. So that kind of those blood system is actually called as open type of circulatory system. In closed type of circulatory system, we actually have vessels. Okay, so from where a specific diameter of vessels, from where the blood, so that is one is oxygenated blood and deoxygenated blood. So both you will see them. So that is each and every cells, tissues, organs, they will be getting both. They will be getting oxygenated blood and giving out the deoxygenated blood, and this every and it will be circulated entire through the body, and that happens through the specific vesicles which are varying in its diameter. Okay, so vesicles such as arteries, veins, and capillaries. About circulatory system and all, I'll be explaining you when we have a chapter called blood and its circulations. Okay, so this is all about body, level of organization. So next we have a symmetry. So in your textbook, there is a crab verb been given as example. So coming to symmetry, we have no symmetry or asymmetry. Okay. So animals that can be categorized based on their symmetry. So sponges, they belongs to asymmetry. Okay. Then like when you pass a plane through the center, okay, it will not be able to divide them into two equal halves. So those types of plane, when that passes through the center, divides it will be not able to divide the body into two equal identical halves. So those all are actually called as what? Asymmetry. Clear? So now what happens when from a center when an axis is being passed, okay, so when what happens through when a plane is being passed through the center in say in any angle, so what happens, it is going to divide the organisms into two equal identical halves or many equal identical halves. Have you seen like starfish as an example or Cinderella as an example? So if you cut them right in any way, if you cut them like this, you will actually find equal identical halves itself. So those kind are actually called as radial symmetry. The last one is bilateral symmetry. When I'm talking about bilateral symmetry, same thing. When you pass a plane through the center axis of a body, it is only going to divide the body into two equal identical half and not more than that. That means only two, right half and left half. Okay, right and left half. So they are actually called as bilateral symmetry. Okay, so they are called as bilateral symmetry. So this is all about the symmetry. After symmetry, we have diploblastic and triploblastic mode of organization. So first thing we need to know is animals are having cells are arranged in two embryonic layer. Okay, so the external layer is actually called as ectoderm and internal layer is actually called as endoderm. So what happens, uh, the animal in which the cell will be having the embryonic layer, that is external ectoderm and internal endoderm, right? So they are actually called as diploblastic organization. Okay, and the animals are actually called as diploblastic animals. Example, Coleantheratus. So what you will be seeing is there will be in the middle of this ectoderm and endoderm, there will be an undifferentiated layer. Can you see the undifferentiated layer here? So they are called as mesoglia. Okay. So which is present between the ectoderm and endoderm. Next, we have is triploblastic organization. In triploblastic organization, what happens? Those animals will be having outer ectoderm and inner endoderm. But in between, okay, there will be when the development of the embryo, it has the third germinal layer, which is actually called as mesoderm here, which is third germinal layer. Okay, so these third germinal layer is actually called as what? Mesoderm. So in between the ectoderm and endoderm, if the mesoderm is present, it is actually called as, those animals are called as triploblastic animal, like what do you say, that platyhelminthes to the chordata, these all group, they come under this triploblastic organization mode. So this is about organization. So next concept is about the coulomb. That means, again in Coulomb, we have three things. What do you mean by Coulomb? Presence or absence of the cavity, where in between the body wall and the gut wall, okay, is very important. and that is actually called as coulomb. So if the body cavity which lies by, okay, if the body cavity, coulomb is nothing but body cavity which is leaned, which is leaned by what? Mesoderm. Okay, it is actually called as coulomb. So what are coulombs? If the body cavity which is leaned by the mesoderm, it is actually called as coulomb. So example, annelida, molluscas, arthropoda, echinoderms, then hemichordata, chordata, they all are actually cool. They all comes under this thing. So in some animals, what happens? The body cavity is not leaned by the mesoderm. Okay. So instead of that, there is there you will see there is nowhere you will see them. Okay, nowhere you will see them. So they are called as, that is, the animals in which you will be seeing the absence of this coulomb, that is the body cavity. So they are actually called as acoulomb. Okay, porifera, coleanterata are examples. In some animals, you will see these body cavity, okay, in some animals like pseudocoulomb. Suppose if I'm saying on pseudocoulombs, the body cavity is not leaned by the mesoderm. Instead, you will see the scattering of this, body cavity. Okay. So where a pouch-like structure, scattered pouch, where in between the ectoderm as well as the endoderm, so pouch-like structure has been scattered. So they are actually called as, such animal will be those cavity which has been possessed by such animals are called as pseudocoulomids. Yeah. Then last thing about the true coulomb, where you will actually see a body cavity or the coulomb which is leaned, okay, with what? And mesoderm, leaned with mesoderm. So they are actually called as true coulomb or coulomids. So this is all about the coulomb. So next thing is segmentation. So if I'm talking about segmentation, the body, you will see them, they have been divided internal and externally divided into separate segments, right? So if suppose in reptiles, you will see some series of segmentation on the body. For example, if you take an example of earthworm, what happens? You can see the body has certain segments on its body, right? And the body showing this pattern is actually called as metameric segmentation. This pattern is called as metameric segmentation. And this phenomenon is actually called as metamerism. So this is also important for theory aspects and even in base of MCQs. So what is metamerism now? So like you will see a body showing the segment pattern. Okay, they are called as metameric segmentation, and this phenomenon is called as metamerism. This thing you will be seeing example earthworm, where the body has segments. Then presence of chordates, non-chordates also presence. That is notochord. So what is notochord? It is mesodermally. It is mesodermally derived rod like structure, okay, which forms a dorsal disc during the embryonic development. During the embryonic development, we will be actually having the notochord, okay, so which actually acts as a dorsal disc, which is present backbone. You will be seeing this structure in the higher organisms, okay, and those organisms which is lacking this notochord, they actually comes in lower organisms like porifera, then to the echinodermata, you will actually see notochord will be absent. So from the echinodermatas, right, after echinodermatas, you will actually see the presence of the notochord here. Like say from you will see actually this from all the chordatas like birds, finks, we human beings, we all possess the notochord. Clear? So from the porifera to the echinodermata, we will actually see absence of the notochord, and from the chordata, you will actually see the presence of the notochord. So this was all about how what are the stages and what are the things that we will be considering while they are being classified. So next we will actually study about the classification category, that is based on their level of organization, symmetry, body cavity, the kingdom Animalia have been placed into different phyla. So what happens in the plant kingdom? We normally call them as groups. They have been placed into different groups. Here we will say them they have been been kept in different phylum. Correct. So this is all about the kingdom Animalia, how they have been classified. So now one by one, we will try to study their basic characteristics, general characteristics of the phylums. Yes. So after the way they have been classified into different phylum, the entire animal kingdom. So we have the very first phylum, that is phylum porifera. So having any idea regarding what is phylum porifera? No? Because even this video has also gone live in the last time, right? So coming to the phylum porifera, so you can actually see this pictures on the screen, I guess. So phylum porifera are commonly called as sponges. And another very important thing is they're generally marine and aquatic in nature. And they are what kind of symmetry can be seen here? Asymmetry. Asymmetry, right? So another very important thing of these are that primitive multicellular animals, and they have cellular level of organization. So this is another very important thing. So coming to the sponges, right? They have water transport canal system. Water transport canal system. So what is this water transport canal system means? Basically what happens, the water they are going to get enter, water is going to enters through a minute spore called as ostia. Okay, so there will be a minute spores here. So from these, water is going to get entered into the body of the sponges or the body of the porifera. And later on, what happens? The pathway of water, right? So there, basically, what happens is they goes out through the osculum, then water reaches to the osculum, and this pathways of the water transport from the body and to the body and all, it helps in the supply of food, then waste excretion, everything. That is, so with water current, with water, even some of the organisms or these things will be carried, right? So that means water will be carrying food also, so it will get the food as well as whatever the waste, right? So they're being excreted out with the water itself. So this is, that is removal of water. Then there will be an exchange of water also takes place. Then we have another thing called as uh, collar cells. Okay, so these collar cells you will find lean to this, what do you say that, sporo spongiocole cells. Okay, so you will see this collar cells that have been lean to the spongiocole cells, which is present internal. And another point is spongiocole cell as well as canals. Okay, And when it comes to digestion will be internal digestion you will absorb. So these are some of the major points of the phylum porifera. So another very important point is the body is being actually supported by a skeletal which is made up of spicules or spongin fibers. So skeleton is actually made up of spicules or spongin fibers. And coming to their sexes, they are not separated. So what kind of thing we can see? Hermaphrodites. That means basically they are hermaphrodites in nature. So this is about the phylum porifera. So if they are hermaphrodites in nature, that means sexes are not separated, they are present within. Okay, so what kind of reproduction you will see? You will actually see asexual as well as sexual mode of reproduction. So when asexual mode of reproduction, it is by fragmentation. So when I'm talking about the sexual mode of reproduction, it is by formation of gametes, right? So the last one is fertilization. It is obviously fertilization is internal. So and what about the development? Development is fertilization internal because sexes are same. They are not separated. Development. So what about development? It is indirect. See, indirect, that means what happens? There will be a larva stage, which is morphologically, it will be distinct, that is different from its parent. So you are seeing the parents here. That means you are seeing the adult porifera, matured porifera. Right. So, but during its development, that is initial stage, it will be showing larval stage. So obviously, its initial stage will be totally different and it will be not identical from its parents. So that is all about the porifera. So one thing what you can do is you can actually make a summarized point like this. I mean, instead of reading the entire textbook, if you summarize them and if you make them like this way, if you try to make them in a points, okay, so this will help you to revise the entire concept in a very few time. So during your revision period. So some of the examples are also important because based on examples match the followings or true or false statements can be also asked, right? So some examples of this phylum porifera are cycons. Can I call like this is cycons? So another example is this thing that is Euspongia. Another example that can be given is Spongilla. Okay, so these Spongilla, right? Whatever you're seeing, the Spongilla, so they're basically used as a they're called as the freshwater sponges also. Okay, and you are seeing this Euspongia, right? So these Euspongias, they are being used as a bathing soap also because of its hard as well as porous nature. Sorry, this is the Euspongia. Both are also Euspongia. Okay. So because of its hard nature, you can see them being used as a bath soap. So this is one of the major part of what? Phylum Porifera. So coming to the next phylum that is, which is this phylum. Phylum. Hmm. Phylum Culienterata, which is also called as Cindria, Cnidaria or Cindria. So, phylum Coleonterata or cnidaria. So they are again aquatic in nature and mostly marine, and they are swimming, free swimming beings. And what kind of symmetry you can see? Symmetry, radially symmetry, radially symmetric animals. And the name, this name is actually been derived from what? Uh, Cnidoblasts. Okay, this is actually being derived from the cnidoblast, which means the stinging capsule like substance. They normally look like stinging capsules, so they are being named as cnidaria. Okay, so this is another very important point. Then coming to the presence, so you can actually see the presence of tentacles here. Tentacles will be seen right on the body, right? So these tentacles actually helps in holding the prey also, and also for the locomotion. Then this cnidoblast that we are being seeing, they are being used for defense. That is the cnidoblast, right? So they are being used for defense. Then capture of prey. Right. So they what kind of level of organization they exhibit? They exhibit tissue level. Okay. So tissue level of organization has been exhibited, and their diploplastic organisms, right? So another very important thing is they in the center region, you at the center vacuoles cavity, it has a so in the central vacuole cavity, it has what? A single opening of mouth where you will see on the hypostoma region. So that is this region. Okay. Sorry. On this region, you will actually see a single opening of mouth on the hypostoma region. So this is one. And coming to the digestion, what kind of digestion can be seen? Digestion is extracellular and intracellular digestions can be absorbed. Examples are some of the examples are, you know, uh, sorry, Corolus, corals, they have a skeleton. So these corals, right? So they have skeleton composition or skeleton composed of calcium carbonate. So their skeleton component consists of a component of calcium carbonate. And another very basic important thing is these coleonterata, they exhibit two basic body forms. Exhibit two basic body forms. And what are those? So first one is polyp, and the another one is medusa. So this thing that is this one I can call it as polyp. Sorry, this one I can call it as medusa. Okay, first one medusa, and this part can be called as polyp. Okay, So the form of this thing. So whereas later you can actually see an umbrella-like structure can also be seen, like when it comes to that structure and all. Okay, so what is this polyp and medusa? They are during their embryonic development or during its initial stage, you will see these structures. Okay, then those whatever the cylindrical will be seen the structure, and you will also see a tentacles which is going to help them for catching of prey, defense, as well as in the locomotion. This is another very important point. Then they actually show alternation of generation, these things. Okay, polyp and medusa, so they actually show alternation of generation. So what is this alternation of generation basically? See, what happens is two kinds of stages, reproductive stages you will see. So one is asexual stage and sexual stage. So one of the organisms will actually undergo asexual mode of reproduction. Then after once it goes to the asexual mode of reproduction, then it will undergo the sexual mode of reproduction. So this can be seen in almost plant as well as animals. Okay, so those special features, that is the process through which the one, see, that is nothing but, see, the process through which one generation of say plants or animals, okay, they normally reproduce asexually. So they normally reproduce asexually before giving birth to what? Sexually reproducing generation. So that is called as alternation of generation. Did you got the what exactly the meaning of alternation of generation? That means the process through which one generation of plant or animal, right? So they reproduce asexually before they give birth to a sexual reproducing generation or sexual reproducing organisms. So this is actually called as alternation of generation. For example, so from polyp, uh, for example, from this thing, that is uh, polyp to the medusa, what happens? You will actually see a polyp to medusa asexual reproduction. So from the medusa to the polyp, you will actually see sexual reproduction. Okay, so this thing happens within one generation itself, that is within the one organism itself. So this is again a very basic concept on which phylum? Phylum Coleonterata. So what is our next phylum? So examples, I hope you know what are the examples of them. So one example is jellyfish, yes, jellyfish. And another one is uh, brain coral. Where is it? Yeah. One is jellyfish. Then we have Physalia. Physalia is actually called as Portuguese man of war, right? So another one is sea anemone, sea anemone, and the sea pen. That is nothing but pinnatita. So some of the examples of the phylum Coleonterata. Make sure that you are very specific with the examples. That means based on examples, MCQs might ask. I mean, what do you say that match the following, or whether their statement for true or false statements can be asked based on the examples also. So examples are very important. Okay, common as well as their scientific name. Both are important. So next, what is our next phylum? Our next phylum is Ctenophora. So phylum Ctenophora, basically commonly they're called as sea walnuts, right? Sea walnuts or comb jellies. And they're exclusively marine. And what time of symmetry we'll see? Radial symmetry. And what kind of organisms? Diploblastic organization. Diploblastic organization with tissue level of organization you will see. So then the body, it actually body bears 8 external rows of ciliated, you know, comb plates. So if you observe this, you will actually see some, if you observe this, right, you'll actually see it is bearing what? 8 external rows of ciliated comb plates. And another important thing is which these 8, rows of the ciliated comb plates, they which help in the locomotion basically. Plates helps in one thing is yes, it is going to help in the locomotion for sure. And when it comes to digestive system, digestion is both extracellular and they're intracellular. Then we have another thing that is a very important thing on this Pterophora phylum is it actually shows the bioluminescence. So what do you mean by bioluminescence? It is nothing but property of emitting light. So as you can see in the picture or in this, image. So what you're actually seeing, you're seeing that it is actually illuminating what? Light, right? So yes. So this kind of property can be seen in this phylum. So which is very important. Then sexes, they are not separated. So reproduction takes place by sexual mean. Okay, okay. So not asexual. Reproduction takes place by sexual mean. That is, fertilization is external or internal. The fertilization will be external with again indirect development. Okay, indirect development. Example for this is pleurobrachin brachia. Pleurobrachia is one example, and tenoplana is another example for the phylum Ctenophore. So this is all about the phylum Ctenophore. So what about the next phylum then? We have the next phylum that is platyhelminthes. So coming to the platyhelminthes, one thing that we need to understand in platyhelminthes is so they have dorso-ventrally dorso-ventrally flattened body is one point. Hence they are called as flatworms. Okay, this is one important point. And the second thing is they are what kind of their parasitic mode, that is endoplasmic. endoparasites. Okay, so they are mostly endoparasites found in the animals, including human beings also. And these flat forms, commonly they're called as flat forms, right? They are what kind of symmetry you can see? Bilateral. Bilateral symmetry can be observed. And level of organization is organ level of organization, right? So they have a special structure called as hookers as well as suckers. So they are present in the parasitic mode. If they are parasitic mode, you will actually see the presence of hookers and suckers. So hookers helps in attachment in the host, where suckers helps in sucking off whatever the nutrients, right, which are required for them. Then you will actually, that means through the suckers they are going to absorb directly nutrients, okay, through the body surface. Then they have a specialized cells called flame cells. So they have what? Flame cells helps in osmo regulation, I guess. Yeah, osmo regulation as well as in the excretion process. These flame cells plays a very important role. So coming to the sexes, sexes are not separated. Sexes are not separated. So therefore fertilization is again internal. Fertilization is internal and development is through development is through many larval stages. Okay, so this is development, and some of the examples of they are this thing called liver fluke and tapeworm. So a very important point in this phylum is it actually shows the alternation of it actually shows high regenerative capacity. Okay, this is another very important point. That is, it actually shows high regenerative capacity. So this is all about the platyhelminthes. So our next phylum is aschelminthes. So what do you mean by aschelminthes? Yeah. So body basically, which is, see, the body of this aschelminthes is circular in cross section. Hence, they are also called as roundworms, right? So they are basically free living and aquatic in nature, as well as terrestrial being also, or sometimes they also are parasitic in plants and animals. So these are some of the important points. And what about their symmetry? Level of organization is organ system level of organization and triploblastic. Then what type of coulomb you'll see? Pseudocoulomets. Pseudocoulomets, right? Then coming to their alimentary canal, So what about alimentary canal? It is complex, well developed, and complete. How complete? It has a well developed muscular, complex, complete, and well developed. What it has? Muscular or muscular pharynx, right? So an excretory tube is also there, which is going to remove the waste from the body. Then through the cavity, that is actually called as excretory pore. Then coming to the sexes are separated, the way you can see, and male will be somewhat smaller when compared to the female. And at the posterior tip of the male, you will actually see somewhat sharpen and slender. Okay, so this is one thing, that is when you see the male, you can easily differentiate it whether they are male or female. And the female are basically longer when compared to the male. When coming to the fertilization, so fertilization is internal or external. So it is internal, and development, it might be or direct or indirect. Okay, so direct means younger one basically resembles what? Adults or parents, right? So younger one, they are going to resemble parents, and if it is indirect, so the initial stage will not be resembling their parental stage. So this is all about the ascaris. So one example that you can give is ascaris lumbricoides, which is actually called as roundworm, and another we have which is called as Ucheria prankofti. Have you heard? So that is some of, like, what do you call it? Filaria worm. Then we also have hookworms. So these are the examples of aschelminthes. So coming to the next phylum, that is, yes, which phylum it is? Annelida. This phylum Annelida, right? One very important thing is they are again marine and freshwater living, or they are terrestrial. Then casual points, that is, they are free living, and sometimes you will actually see them as parasitic mode. Right. So they exhibit organ system level of organization, then bilateral symmetry, and triploblastic. And another very important point is they are metamerically segmented. Metamerically segmented means, can you see the segments on the body? It is nothing but metamerically segmented. So hence these phylums are being named as Annelida. Yeah. So annelida, which means anni is nothing but their little ring-like structure. So they possess longitudinal circular muscles, which helps in the locomotion. So they possess longitudinal and circular muscles, which actually helps in the locomotion. And basically, when you see about aquatic annelida, right? So like if you see this organ, which is Nairis. So they are basically what? They're aquatic annelidans, right? So these aquatic annelidans, they possess lateral appendages. Can you see this? It possesses what? Lateral appendages. So appendages, they are parapodia. So these they are actually called as parapodia, which actually helps in swimming or momentum in the aquatic. Then there is another structure called nephridia. So nephridia or nephridium, if it is singular. Okay. So what is this nephridia? Again, it helps in osmoregulation and excretion, right? So the nephridians normally helps in osmoregulation and excretion. Then we will be seeing another one thing. There are lateral nerves will also be present, okay, which is to the double ventral nerve cord. Then another thing about this thing is reproduction. So what about reproduction? It is sexual mode of reproduction. So yeah, here also you will be seeing for some, as I told, there parasitic, suckers are also present, and examples for them as, yeah, Nairis is one. Then we have another thing is earthworm, earthworm, that is peritima. Then another example could be iridium, iridini, iridinaria, which is actually called as blood sucking sleeves. So you have seen this thing, I guess, because almost wherever you go, since it is rainy season, you will find them in most of the muddy areas. Okay, so these are actually a leeches which basically they suck blood, and from the blood it is going to absorb the nutrients. And now some leeches that have been also used as some medical importance like leech therapy and all. It has been using. Yeah, this is all about the phylum annelida. So last, another one phylum which is very important we have is phylum arthropoda. So in this phylum arthropoda, which is actually the largest phylum in the animal kingdom, which includes insects. Okay, right. So 2 to 3 of the species, like 2 to 3% of the species in the earth belongs to this phylum arthropoda, and they have an organ system level of organization, bilateral, symmetry, and they are triploblastic, and they are coolomatic animals. That means they possess true coulomb. So the body of this arthropoda has been covered by chitin or chitinous exoskeleton. Okay. So then the body consists of head, then we have thorax and abdomen, right? So this is another thing. And you will also see a jointed appendages, which is like legs and all. Then another important thing is about the respiration. So what is about the respiration? So respiratory organs are through gills or book lungs or book gills, sorry, book gills and book lungs. Yeah. So book lungs is nothing but, or you will also see the tracheal system. Coming to its circulatory system. So what about its circulatory system, whether it is open type or closed type? Open type of circulatory system you will see. Then which is very simple and compound. Then what about eye? You will see actually sensory organs, then presence of eyes, which is simple and compound eyes. Then you also have uh, another very important thing is crastocyst, which helps in balancing of body. Okay. And when coming to the excretion, it normally takes place through the Malpighian tubules, and they are mostly dioecious animals. And fertilization, when it comes to fertilization, hmm. So fertilization, whether they will be external or internal, will be internal. Usually, it will be internal, and they are mostly oviparous animals. Like they normally, these insects also lay egg. Then mostly oviparous. Coming to its development, so development is direct or indirect. Okay, so development will be either direct or indirect. So there are many examples with respect to the arthropoda. So make sure that once you refer the NCERT textbook, because they have given the proper, examples. Uh, so yeah, the next phylum will be the phylum molluscus, right? So what do you see in the phylum mollusca? So they are being called as the second largest phylum. One thing that is you will see in the animal kingdom. So they are both terrestrial as well as aquatic, and they normally live in the marine as well as freshwater. These are normal general characteristics, right? So what type of system of organization you will see here is organ system of organization. So after organ system of organization, you'll also see the bilateral symmetry, that is right. So after bilateral symmetry, you'll also see the triploblastic, and they are also coulomates. That means they possess true coulomb, that is true body cavity. So body is being divided, or the body, is actually covered. So this covering of the body you are seeing, right? So they are actually what? They have been covered by uh, calcareous shell. Okay, so which is very hard. Calcareous shell, which is very hard. It acts as a defensive or protection against the prey. And what about they have muscular foot? So they do have muscular foot and locomotion. That you'll see a very smooth and very smooth, slow locomotion will be absorbed. And they also have pectoral hump. This thing. So when you come with the body, right, they're very spongy. The skin is very soft. Okay. And there is actually a space between the hump as well as mantle. So there will be a space between the hump and the mantle. So mantle cavity. This hump and mantle cavity, it is actually called as, see, there is a space between the mantle, right? So this space is actually called as mantle cavity. Okay, this is another point. And the what do you say that the space is over. So then coming to the respiratory system, right? So you will be seeing the respiration here, and excretory system will also be seen here. Then after respiratory system and excretionary system, you will see the head region, that is anterior. You will actually see the head region and head region which possess what sensory tentacles will also be consist. Okay, and the mouth contains whatever the mouth region, right? So mouth region will be containing what? They will be containing a file-like structure, file-like rasping organ. Okay, rasping organ. So that helps for feeding. Then they are actually called as radula. They are usually dioecious and oviparous with indirect development, you will see. Okay, not the direct development, but indirect development. Example is phyla, which is apple snail. Then you have also this thing that is, which is commonly called as pearl ostia. Then sepia, which is cuttlefish, and many examples are there with related to molluscus. So next we have the phylum is echinodermata. Phylum echinodermata, again they are marine basically, and they have this thing called endoskeleton. Okay, so which is endoskeleton of calcareous ocelus, and hence they are actually called as echinodermata. Then they have spine-like body, as you can see here. And another one thing is when they come out from the water, right, their body becomes automatically very hard. So all the marine, they have a very well organ system, grade of organization. And what type of symmetry you're going to see? You'll be seeing radial symmetry, right? So radial symmetry, and you will also see the in some of the organisms, you will also see the bilateral symmetry will also be seen. So again, that triploblastic and coulomate animals. This is one point. So when coming to the digestive system, it is complete with the mouth, and you have lower side, and anus will be mouth will be actually in the lower side, whereas anus will be present. So these anus, will be on the upper, that is on the dorsal part. And the major important point on this echinodermata, the phylum is there is actually a presence of water vascular system. So what is this water vascular system? So this water vascular system helps in water intake and extake. With that, it also helps in locomotion. Then capture of food is nothing but prey. Okay, and as I told you, the transport of food as well as respiration, water, everything is being taken care by the water vascular system. So what about the fertilization? So excretory system is actually absent here. So we have sexes, they are being separated. And when it comes to reproduction, they reproduce through sexually, and fertilization is usually external or internal. It will be external fertilization, you will see. Obviously the development will also be indirect development with free swimming larvae. Okay, so examples are sea lily, cucumeria, which is also called as sea cucumber, and some of like starfish and all are examples for the echinodermata. So the next one that we have is phylum hemichordata. Can you see this? What is the example? It is actually Balanoglossus. So in hemichordata, what happens? They were actually earlier hemichordata were being considered as a phylum under the phylum chordata. But later on, with the development of the subject and all, they have been replaced as a separate phylum itself. So these hemichordata they come under non-chordates basically. Okay, and hemichordata have rudimentary structure. Okay, it actually have a rudimentary structure in the collar region. So this is the collar, right? So you will actually see somewhat rudimentary structure which is in the collar region. They're actually called as stomochord. So they are actually called as stomochord, which is present in the collar region. So a structure which is actually similar to notochord. So that's why before they thought, okay, this their notochord might be present. That's why they were being placed at subphylum under the phylum chordata. But after that, they got to know it is somewhat similar to this notochord, but it is not the notochord. That's why they were being placed under again separate phylum itself. Then the phylum consists of small groups of worm-like, marine animals, worm-like marine animals with organ system level of organization. Okay, so they are again bilateral symmetry. Then you will also see triploblastic animal, and they are coolomates or coolomatic animals. So the body is actually cylindrical. Right. So body will be cylindrical and it consists of anterior proboscis. Then you have also collar in the middle region and the long tail and trunk region. Okay, long trunk. It is actually called as trunk region. So it consists of the body is being divided into proboscis, collar, and trunk, long trunk region. So when coming to the circulatory system, it is of open type of circulatory system. And another important thing is excretory organ. So excretory organ is actually excretory organ is proboscis gland. Okay, so excretory organ will be the proboscis gland, and coming to the sexual part, sexes are separated. Sexes are separated, and fertilization is external. And coming to development is indirect. So development is actually indirect. So these are the examples of phylum hemichordata. Major after non-chordates, right? You'll see the chordates. Like in the phylum hemichordata, we just get to know that they don't have chordates, right? So that is the notochord is not present. So after hemichordata, we have the phylum called chordata. So what do you know about chordata? Yeah, the word itself says that from these phylum, whatever comes, right? So the animals will be having notochord in their development. So that is the presence of notochord is the first thing. And where you will be seeing dorso hollow nerve cord, you will also see. Then you'll also see dorso hollow nerve cord, you will see. Then paired pharyngean gills will also be slits will also be present. So you can see here, right? You are seeing this dorso hollow nerve cord. You are seeing. Then you are also seeing paired. pharyngeal sides of gills are also being seen. So you can see the mouth part, that is complete digestive system, can also be seen, right? Mouth part is also there, and anus is also there. So presence of notochord can also be seen here. So this is all about the chordates. And yeah, general characteristics, they're bilateral symmetry and triploblastic, and what next? Coolomates. These animals are coolomates, and they show organ system level of organization, and closed type of circulatory system will be observed. So these all are very common. So these chordates, they have been differentiated into two. So what are the chordates has been divided into two subphylum. One is Urochordata, Urochordata, or you can also call it as tunicata. Okay. So another one, it is Cephalochordata, or they're also called Cephalochordata, and another one is Vertebrata. So I'll just let you know this. So basically, they have been placed like they have been divided into three. But in vertebrata, but later on, what happens? You'll see that Urochordata, Tunicata, Cephalochordata, they have been placed one. Then you'll see the vertebrata as again separate. Like vertebrata is again divided into many, something like that. So for moment, you have to concentrate more about the subphylum vertebrata. See, invertebrata, that is, vertebrata has again been divided into two groups. One is agnata and gnatastoma, gnatostomata. See, agnata is nothing but which lacks the jaw. Okay. So if gnatostomata, which normally bears the jaw. And again, this gnatostomata, which has been divided into super classes. So what are those super classes? First is classes, spices or fishes, and another as tetrapods. So tetrapods are nothing but they bear the limbs, okay? Like you'll see some classes such as amphibians, then reptiles, aves, and last one is mammals. So what I was talking about, the very first thing is we have some classes, right? So this agnata, again, in this agnata, you'll actually see the class cyclostomata. So these classes, okay, and here you will be seeing class Pisces or fishes and class tetrapods. Sorry, you'll see tetrapods, in which tetrapods you'll see the classes amphibians, reptiles, aves, as well as mammals. Yeah. So first class is you have class cystostoma, right? So these class cystostoma, as you can already see, they are what? They are ectoparasitic form. So what do you mean by ectoparasitic? Can you see the structure of this thing? So they have an elongated gills here. You can actually see elongated body, and also you can see the pair of gills here. Elongated body bearing gills of around 6 to 15 pair of gills will be present in the class cystostomata. So another very thing is these gills, obviously it helps for respiration thing. And in mouth, there is present thing called suckers, and that helps in, attaching to specific bigger or larger organisms. And from there, they're going to suck the blood or nutrients, whatever, directly. So these are without a jaw, as I already told in the classification. So they don't have jaws, okay, teeth, something like that. So that's why instead of that, there are suckers are present. So the body is devoid. That means the body, you won't see any scales like structure. You won't see any scales like structure. And their body is been paired fences are present. You can actually see the fences here. Then vertebral column are actually cartilaginous. Vertebral column are cartilaginous. Right. Then they actually, what you will see them as, circulation is again a closed type of circulation, and they're marine. But what happens during their to produce the offsprings, they actually migrate to fresh water, and there breeding everything takes place, and they'll leave there some days. And once the progeny or offsprings have been produced, like carbon lead, whatever it is, so they are going to die there itself. Okay, so their larva, after metamorphosis, what happens, they'll return back to the again marine habitat. So this is all about the cyclostomata. Okay, the next class we have is chondrichthyes. So here in this class, as you can see, the structure of two figures or diagrams, right? So these specific organisms. So you'll actually see that the body has somewhat stream-like structure, that is streamlined body. So body is what I can say it as streamed body. Okay, this is one point. And they have the cartilaginous endoskeleton. Okay, so mouth, as you can see, they are being located ventrally. The mouth region are being located. So they are being located ventrally. And you can also see the notochord is persistent. It is been persistent throughout the life. Okay, so throughout the life. And the skin is very tough actually. Uh, and you can also see the development of the mouth part. Okay, so due to the absence of air bladder is absence, they have to swim consistently to avoid themselves from getting shrunken. So they are restless animals again. And heart is two chambered. These all things right? So heart is again two chambered, and one auricle and one ventricle will be present. And some of them have electric organs. Okay, so if you touch it, right, you'll actually find a shock, feel shock. For example, trigon, have you seen trigon fish? So electric fish, so it has some electric organs. Okay, and they're obviously cold-blooded animals, and they capable to regulate their body temperature. Sexes are separated, and in male, pelvic fins bears the capsules in male. And coming to the fertilization, it is internal fertilization, and many of them are viviparous. That means they don't lay egg. So normally they give birth to their youngers. Many of them are viviparous. So dogfish and sawfish are some of the examples with this class. So the next class is Orchioptus. So in this class, you can see this. They includes both marine as well as freshwater beings. Okay, so they are endoskeleton. They have endoskeleton, and the body is again streamlined. These are general characteristics. Okay, so streamlined, and where you can see the mouth is been terminated, and they have, that is, the mouth is mostly terminal mouth. Then they have four pair of gills are being present. So you can see here four pairs of gills will be present, which are covered by gills, covered by operculum. Okay, on each side. So skin is actually covered with what? And skin covered with cycloid. Okay, cycloid scales. Then again, what about air bladder here? Air bladder is present, so that is going to regulate the, uh, air bladder is present, and it is going to regulate the body thing and all. So heart is again two chambered, one auricle, one ventricle will be present, and they are cold-blooded animals or cold-blooded organisms. Sexes are separated. Fertilization is usually external fertilization. Most of them are viviparous, and development is direct. Like you will see them. For example, if you see the seahorse, right? The So the baby which emerges from the egg, right? So that will be resembling when from its parents. Okay. So there were, I can call it as development is direct anyhow. Examples are some of the exocutus, which is nothing but the flying fish, and hippocampus, and still many examples are there. So that coming to the next class we have is class amphibian, which is very important. So can you just generalize some of the, see, we know the general structure of these amphibians, right? Their physical appearance and all. So I'll just try to, memorize something which is very important. Uh, First about the amphibian is about their body is being divided into head, trunk, as well as some of the amphibians will be having tail and some will not be having tail anyhow. So there are, tail might be present and might not be present, but during the initial development, tail will always be present. So the high have eyelids will be present. And what about ears actually? Tympanum, okay, represents the ear. So can you see the ear here? So here these tympanum, they normally represents the ear. Then we have another thing is alimentary canal, then urinary bladder. Then you will almost see all the developmental organs here. Okay, so reproductive tract, everything will be present. They have been opened into a common chamber called as the, see what happens here. The alimentary canal is there, urinary bladder, then the reproductive tract, they all open into one common chamber. So which is actually called as cloacia, which opens into exterior. Anyhow, see, when coming to its respiration, gills respiration, then we have lungs and even through the skin. Like if you see the frogs, right, they respire through the gills as well as they respire through the skins also. So yeah, you will see some of the organisms which are in amphibians, they respire through gills, some respires through their skin, and some respires through their lungs. They are cold-blooded, and again, how many chambered heart you'll see? You'll actually see a two-chambered heart. But and when it comes to its reproduction, sexes are separated. They're oviparous, and development is again indirect. But only except in the crocodile, you will see three-chambered heart. Okay, so exception is in crocodile. So that question can also be asked. Sorry, not crocodile. Uh, what do you say that? Yeah, almost that two-chambered heart here, amphibians. It comes in reptile, right? Sometimes even we get confused or carried out while we are explaining. So it's a human error, not a big deal. So this is general examples of both the amphibians. So what next? Next is reptile. So what all the things that you can see on the reptile when you see when you are looking generally? Scales are present. Yeah, the body is very hard. That's true. And locomotion, creeping, carling type of locomotions you'll observe. That's right. And another thing is skin type. I have already discussed that is it's really very hard, confined. And you'll see scales, right? What type of scales? Epidermal. Epidermal scales, right? Epidermal scales or cutics will be observed there. And they do not have any external ear opening will be present. Then, so here also, here will be tympanum, okay, which is normally going to represent the ear.
Then three-chambered heart you will see where limbs are there, forelimbs, hind limbs presence can be observed. So two pairs, that is limbs are actually two pair. Heart is usually three-chambered here. Okay. So here heart is three-chambered, but exception for crocodile because it is four-chambered. Okay. Heart is usually three-chambered, but in crocodile, you'll actually see the four-chambered heart. Reptiles are basically phycilotherms, right? They are basically phycilotherms. Then snakes as well as lizards that you can see, they normally shed the scales, okay, and skin cast. They normally shed them. Sexes are again separated. They are basically fertilization is internal, and they are oviparous, and development is direct. Okay, so these are some of the examples like turtle, that is Ceylon, and we have chameleon, right, which is commonly called as tree lizard, and still many naga, viper. Okay, then yeah, there are many examples like that. So the next class is aves. So in aves, again, they are being featured in the presence of feathers, right? So and most of them can basically fly. Only few like ostrich and all kiwi. So they are unable to fly. They are flightless birds. But almost all the birds, they normally fly. So they possesses what beak as mouth instead of like in a mouth. They normally possess beak and four limbs, right? So four limbs are actually forelimbs are modified into wings. And yeah, hind limbs, they help in walking, swimming process and all. And the skin is dry without any gland except oil gland is present. So because that is going to help them becoming less what do you say, that it shows resistant towards like water and all. So then another thing is about skin is actually dry. We get to know that without a dry is dry without this dry without glands except the oil gland will be present. Then where oil gland will be present at the base of the tail basically. Then another thing is about endoskeleton. What about the endoskeleton? It is fully bony endoskeleton, and in the bones, you'll also see some of the air cavity in the bones. So this actually helps in the flying. That means it normally reduces the weight, okay, during the flight of a bird. Then all these birds, their digestive tract of the bird has additional chambers are also present. Okay, then heart is again complete with four chambered heart and closed type of circulatory system. It's again common, and they also maintain a constant body temperature. That is, they are again hot-blooded animals. And coming to its respiration, it normally respires to the lungs, and air sacs are present, right, which are being connected to the lungs, and that is going to supplement the respiration. Then sexes are again separated. They are oviparous or viviparous. Now they are viviparous or oviparous. That means normally they lay egg, right? Yes. So that means they're oviparous. And what about their fertilization? It is internal fertilization. They're oviparous and development is direct. The young one normally is identical to their parents. The last one, I guess, it's called class mammals. So in class mammals, what happens? You'll find the variety of habitats, right? So even in ice, polar bear, everywhere you'll actually find the class mammals. So they can be found in ice capsule deserts, then in the mountain and normal region, forest, grasslands, and also in the dark caves, you will find the class mammals. Some of them have been adopted to flying also, like you can see here, the bat, it has been adopted to the flying. And in mammals, you will see oviparous and viviparous. All the mammals are viviparous. Example, this except this platypus. Okay, so so it is oviparous because even though it is a mammal, this is going to lay the egg. And again, we have another example, the mammal which is present in the water. So that is blue whale. Okay, even it is also a mammal, but it is present in the water. Then it has four limbs and hind limbs, right? So four limbs acts as like what? Two pairs of limbs will be present. Adaptation for walking, eating, running, climbing, burrowing nature, and you can also see like swimming as well as what do you there flight. So mammals, they possess hair on their body. External ears are present. That is actually called as pinea. So different types of teeth you can see, those who eat flesh, right? They're carnivore animals. They have very sharp teeth. Presence of jaw is also present. Heart is four chamber, two auricle, two ventricle, and they're homeothermos. That is, they are normally red-blooded animal, and they also regulate a temperature, normal body temperature. So respiration is purely by the lungs and sexes are separated. Fertilization is internal and there are viviparous. As I told exception, you will see then platypus. Okay, and coming to in the platypus, the development will be indirect. So examples are, these are some of the examples. So almost you'll get to know about the class mammals. So in this chapter, what I did is I just tried to summarize you just to make it in one class. But if you want in detail video, guys, make sure that you watch the previous videos which I have already uploaded in our Telegram channel. So if you want a detailed video, okay, detailed explanation with points, everything. So don't miss to watch, whatever the videos which have been uploaded previously. Yeah, there you'll get a very detailed explanation. But if you just want a summarize or revision, right? So this video will help you to just revise. And since it is for the Brahmastra test series 6, I have kept that test in mind and I have just made this video. So yes, make sure that you comment your opinion. Okay, like in coming classes, you want these kinds of video where I'll be covering the entire chapters within 1 hour or one shot of video, or else you want me to make part by part so that I'll explain in detail. So if you want me to explain in detail, then comment me down that no, sir, I want an in detail explanation, even if it is for revision. Then I'll definitely going to upload in detail explanation part by part in the coming days. Thank you. Yeah, another very important thing is do not forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends, and also comment, which is very important because without your comments, uh, without us knowing you what you're doing, right, we will be unable to understand how's your preparation going on. So if you keep on commenting, right, one that will be a kind of interaction between me and you. So I'll get to know that okay, you guys are actually understanding whatever I am teaching and all. So try to comment.